Hey everyone, you know how sometimes you pick up a book and it doesn't just give you information, it feels like it sees you, like it's holding up a mirror to parts of your life you didn't even know you were hiding. That's exactly how I felt reading Brené Brown's Daring Greatly. I chose this book because honestly, I think we all secretly crave more courage, more connection, and a deeper sense of belonging in our lives, but we often feel completely lost on how to get there. This book isn't just about abstract ideas, it's about practical steps to transform how we live, love, parent, and even lead. The whole book revolves around this one powerful idea of vulnerability, and before you roll your eyes and think, oh, here we go, touchy-feely stuff, let me stop you right there. Bryn challenges everything we think we know about it. She pulls the phrase daring greatly from Theodore Roosevelt's famous Man in the Arena speech. You know, the one is not the critic who counts, the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. Brian argues that being in the arena is what vulnerability truly is. It's showing up, being seen, and engaging fully. Even when you're uncertain, it's risky, and you're emotionally exposed. It's not about knowing victory or defeat, it's about understanding the necessity of both and being all in. But why is vulnerability so hard? Well, that's where shame comes in. Green defines shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. It's essentially the fear of disconnection. And here's the kicker, we all have it. The only people who don't experience shame lack the capacity for empathy and human connection. So, it's universal, yet we're terrified to talk about it, and that silence gives shame immense power over our lives. She explains that shame thrives on being unspeakable, and hates when words are wrapped around it. She even calls our inner critical voices gremlins that whisper messages like, "You're not good enough," or "Don't you dare get too big for your britches." The good news is, if we name shame and talk about it, it starts to wither. Now, it's easy to confuse shame with guilt, right? But Bree makes a crucial distinction. Guilt is I did something bad, while shame is I'm bad. Guilt can actually be a positive force because it motivates us to apologize, make amends, and change our behavior. Shame, however, corrodes our belief that we can change or do better. It's correlated with addiction, depression, aggression, and bullying, never with positive outcomes. So, because being vulnerable feels so terrifying, and shame is always lurking, we build up defenses. Brain calls this our vulnerability armory. We try to make ourselves perfect or bulletproof before we step into the arena, but that doesn't exist in the human experience. These shields keep us from being seen. Let me tell you about a few of these that really resonated with me. First, there's foreboding joy. Have you ever felt really happy, like things are going great, and then immediately thought, oh no, something bad is about to happen? Or you found yourself rehearsing terrible scenarios in your head? That's foreboding joy, Breen says, and it's a way we try to beat vulnerability to the punch because we're afraid of being blindsided by hurt. The antidote to this? Gratitude. Actively practicing gratitude helps us acknowledge that there's enough and that we're enough. When that vulnerability shudder hits during a joyful moment, it's an invitation to be grateful for what's right in front of you. Then there's perfectionism. We often think of perfectionism as striving for excellence, but Breen argues it's a 20-ton shield aimed at avoiding blame, judgment, and shame. It's not about healthy achievement, it's about trying to earn approval. It's exhausting because it's a never-ending performance. The path out of the shield is self-compassion and embracing our cracks, our imperfections. It's realizing that our worthiness isn't tied to being perfect. And when all else fails, or even when things are just a little uncomfortable, we numb. This isn't just about illegal drugs. Bryn talks about how we use crazy busy as a numbing strategy, or endless scrolling on social media, overeating, or even excessive work. The problem is, you can't selectively numb emotion, numb the dark, and you numb the light. So, if we numb our pain and discomfort, we also dull our experiences of love, joy, belonging, and creativity. How do we combat this? By setting boundaries, finding true comfort versus shadow comforts, and cultivating our spirit. Now you might be wondering, okay, so I understand vulnerability and these shields, but how does this apply to my everyday life, especially in bigger systems? Well, that's where Brian introduces the concept of minding the gap. This is the space between our aspirational values, what we say we believe and want to do, and our practice values, what we actually do. think and feel. When this gap widens, it leads to disengagement, whether it's at home, at work, or in our communities. For instance, if parents preach honesty but then rationalize small acts of dishonesty, there's a gap that children will notice. Closing this gap means aligning our actions with our true values. Even when it's uncomfortable, this idea of minding the gap and being vulnerable also transforms leadership. Breen argues that a leader is anyone who holds themselves accountable for finding potential in people and processes, regardless of their title, to reignite creativity, innovation, and learning in any system. Whether it's a business, a school, or even a family, we have to rehumanize it. This means embracing vulnerability and recognizing and combating shame in the culture. When shame becomes a management tool, engagement dies. Feedback, for example, is incredibly important for growth, but it requires vulnerability from both the giver and receiver. Instead of armoring up and making it a battle, leaders need to sit on the same side of the table with their team, fostering an environment of honest, constructive conversation, recognizing strengths and offering support. And for all the parents out there, this book is a game changer. Breen says that who we are and how we engage with the world are much stronger predictors of how our children will do than what we know about parenting. We can't give our children what we don't have, so our own journey to wholeheartedness is crucial for them. We need to model taking off our armor and being vulnerable. She shares a deeply personal lesson on letting her own daughter struggle, which connects to the idea of hope. Hope, she explains, isn't just a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's a cognitive process involving setting realistic goals, figuring out pathways to achieve them, and believing in ourselves. Hope is learned, and children learn it by being given the opportunity to struggle and navigate adversity. If we constantly rescue them, they never learn to dare greatly on their own. So what's the big takeaway from daring greatly? It's that vulnerability is not weakness, it is our most accurate measure of courage. It's the birthplace of everything we crave: love, belonging, joy, creativity, and empathy. In a world that often feels consumed by scarcity and shame, choosing to show up, be seen, and live with your whole heart is a truly subversive and powerful act. This book isn't just something you read, it's an invitation to practice, to stumble, to make mistakes, and to keep showing up, knowing that you are enough, just as you are. It's a call to embrace our beautifully imperfect humanity. If you're looking to understand yourself better, to navigate difficult emotions, and to build more meaningful connections in your life, whether at home, at work, or within yourself, then I truly recommend Daring Greatly. It will challenge you, it might make you uncomfortable, but it will also leave you feeling a lot braver, more connected, and more alive.